Today we want to take a couple of minutes and talk about the Enlist E3 herbicide platform and the Go on the Harvest Enlist E3 genetics. When we look at this platform, we feel there are 7 key differentiation and talking points that benefit this platform, and that's what we want to spend some time reviewing. So I'm joined with 2 of my team members, Brad Koch and Ryan Dunsbergen. And Brad, start us off here. When you talk about Enlist E3, what does that herbicide program consist of?
Yeah, so the E3 Enlist 3 platform allows over-the-top or pre-application of 3 key herbicides. So 2,4-D-choline, glufosinate, and glyphosate.
All right, thank you. And so Ryan, when you look at that, what type of weed control can we expect utilizing the Enlist E3 herbicide platform?
You bet. So I think of it in kind of in 2 phases. First of all, pre versus post. So on the pre side of things, it actually does a really good job on a lot of the mustards in the mustard family. But then as far as post, it really helps out quite a bit on our tough to control weeds. Has really good control of giant ragweed, common ragweed, water hemp, pigweeds. Weeds like that guys have historically had a hard time controlling, does a really good job of picking those weeds up.
So from your guys' experience in the field, would you say that there is a benefit, parity? How would you relate the Enlist herbicide weed control program relative to something, say, like a dicamba-based Extendiflex? Brad, we'll let you start with that.
Yeah, so the 2 auxins really are at parity for the most part. There's some strengths, and Ryan pointed out a couple of them, velvet leaf, ragweeds, with the 2,4-D. I mean, dicamba is really good on amaranth species, your water hemp type stuff, and pigweeds. So again, both take out mare's tail well. I think they're parity. The difference is they each have their hole. With the 2,4-D-choline, you have the option to tank mix glufosinate with it. At that point, we look down the weed spectrum of control. Between those 2 herbicide chemistries, you're at excellent across the spectrum.
So, Brad, you had mentioned glufosinate, and Ryan, that's a hot topic here this year because it looks as if we'll be in tight supply as we go into the 2022 growing season. So, Ryan, talk to me a little bit about the role of glufosinate in an auxin-based chemistry program, and if a grower can't get that for next year, what platform would he be better utilizing to keep his fields clean?
Yeah. Well, my 2 thoughts there is you're going to have to tank mix something in to pick up your grass species, and that's where the glufosinate is going to come in. It's going to help out on some grasses. My second thing is specifically with an auxin chemistry, glufosinate and any type of auxin, you spray them very similarly. And what I mean by that is coverage is incredibly important. So typically you're increasing your gallons per acre. Coverage is important. A lot of the nozzles, you're using similar nozzles in those situations as well. So it brings a really good companion to the auxin that you're spraying. Very
good. I can't help but think about all of the emotion and challenges that go around utilizing a dicamba-based herbicide program. There's calendar dates, there's rules, there's regulations, there's all of this stuff. Brad, talk to me a little bit about when we talk specifically Enlist E3. What's the usability like? What will a grower experience?
It's night and day difference, Steve. It's night and day difference. So, between rain events, you got to look forward, between the 3 to 10 mile wind speed, the buffers you got to leave for the dicamba, not to mention the volatility aspect. Even if you do everything right, you get a temperature inversion, and we've seen that dicamba, even with the vapor technology, move off target through weather inversions, so temperature inversions. So with the E3 technology, you literally, even a non-Enlist 3 soybean field is not a sensitive crop, so you can spray right up to another soybean field that doesn't have the trait. So there's no buffer there from a sensitive crop perspective. And then your timing, we're not regulated by a federal date. There's no June 30th federal date. Each state then has their own. Illinois, it's the 20th. With the Enlist, you're regulated by growth stage, and you can go all the way up to R2. So your window of application is much wider than the Extend or the Extendiflex.
There's so much emotion around that. As we sit here today, we're in the fall, heading into winter. We might lose sight of just what that feels like when we're back in the heat of the moment. Ryan, you experienced some of this this past year with the wet weather you had in the state of Missouri, and walk us through a little bit about what those growers were faced with and decisions they had to make.
Yeah, well, it was tough, in northern Missouri and southern Iowa, a lot of wet weather in the month of May. So a lot of beans were either planted the first time or planted the second or third time in the second week of June. So when the June 30th drop dead date hit for being able to spray their dicamba, the beans were growing. They were growing nice, but didn't have a whole lot of height to them. So farmers were then forced into making that decision. Do I go out earlier than what I really want to go out and spray? Or do I wait, knowing that, well, if I wait, now I'm making an off-label application, and I can't do that. So it did. It became kind of a tug-of-war type of deal on deciding what to do in that situation this year.
There's a lot of stuff that goes around that, and we understand the userability is more beneficial to the Enlist E3 herbicide platform, but we all understand yield and agronomics is what pays the bills and drives a lot of decisions. So from both of your guys' perspective, Ryan, I'll start with you. Walk us through what your experience is in terms of yield and agronomics with the new Enlist soybeans from Golden Harvest, and specifically the Gold Series.
Sure. Well, I'll start big picture and make this really easy. If I look at first trial data coming out of northern Missouri right now, when I look at the top 30 varieties that are posted, and when I compare Enlist versus XtendFlex, on the early season maturity set, the Enlist platform has about a half bushel advantage over XtendFlex. When I look at the late season maturity group, the Enlist actually has about a 2 bushel advantage over XtendFlex. So, when you compare third-party data, looking at the top 30 varieties, definitely see E3 at parity, if not a touch ahead of the XtendFlex platform.
Well, it's wonderful. And Brad, from yourself, how does that relate from your experiences this past year?
Yeah, so, we'll talk about the Gold Series and how that's game-changing. Let's step back in history a year or two as the industry launched E3s. They got a little bit of a perception of, okay, there's a yield drag. Well, and that perception got pushed upon the trait. It wasn't the trait, never was. It was just certain genetic lines is what was used to launch that platform. And maybe they were inferior to a certain disease or whatnot. So what I saw in my territory last year was if an Enlist bean was well managed and sprayed with quality fungicide, it yielded at parity or above to an Extend or even to an XtendFlex that maybe was in testing. It's fast forward to this year, we got data like Ryan's talking about coming out of the third-party data. Our internal data is showing the same thing as the third party, where we're now, even with taking management out of the picture, just looking at genetics, Enlist 3 to XtendFlex, we're at parity if not above. And it goes back to, I think, a lot of the disease traits and genes that have been introduced into our Gold Series soybeans.
Yeah, and I think what you guys have seen is reminiscent of the broader portfolio where I can go out east, I can go west and north, and we still see in every situation absolute trait parity. Though likely many times the Enlist E3 Gold Series beans are performing at a higher level than anything else in the marketplace, whether internal or across brands as well. So those are some of the 7 key points that we wanted to cover here today that really help set the conversation on why Enlist E3, and more specifically, why we want to continue to utilize and promote the Golden Harvest Gold Series E3 soybeans. Gentlemen, thank you for your time here today.
Pleasure being here. Thank you.
Thank you.